Love in the Fast Lane, Chapter 12. The morning arrived with weak sunlight filtering through the blinds of Sam's apartment. Trey woke on the too-short sofa with his neck twisted at an unnatural angle and his legs hanging off the edge. The cushions had compressed overnight, leaving him essentially sleeping on the frame. He didn't care. Sam had asked him to stay. The sound of movement in the kitchen drew his attention. He sat up, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, and saw Sam standing at the counter with her back to him. She was wearing jeans and a faded autocross club t-shirt. Her hair twisted up in a messy knot. She looked like herself again. Not the polished woman in the victory lane photos, but the engineer who argued about spring rates. "Coffee?" she asked without turning around. "Please." She poured 2 mugs from a machine that looked older than his first race car. The coffee was black, bitter, and exactly what he needed. "I've been thinking," Sam said, settling into the chair across from him. She wrapped both hands around her mug like it was an anchor. "About what you said yesterday. About making this work." Trey waited. He'd learned enough about Sam to know that interrupting her thought process was counterproductive. "I have conditions," she continued, "if we're going to try this." "Name them." "First, no more public appearances together until I say I'm ready. And I mean none. No races, no sponsor events, no charity galas. If someone takes a photo of us together in public, it's because they got lucky with a telephoto lens. Done. Second, you don't try to fix my life with money. No security details, no job offers at Stockton Racing. I keep my life exactly as it is." Trey hesitated. The protective instinct that had driven him to Charlotte was still raw, still demanding action. "What if you're not safe?" "I'm safer anonymous than I am as your girlfriend," Sam said bluntly. "The attention dies down if there's nothing to feed it." "Okay. What else?" "Third, we go slow. I'm not moving to Charlotte. I'm not quitting my job. We date like normal people. Calls, visits when your schedule allows. Building something real before we worry about the circus." Trey nodded. Each condition felt like a concession, but also like a lifeline. She wasn't running. She was negotiating. "And fourth," Sam's voice softened slightly, "you have to trust me to handle my own problems. If I say I need space, you give it to me. If I say I can't talk, you don't show up at my door." Yesterday was an exception. I needed to apologize in person. Yesterday was you panicking and trying to control the outcome. It worked, but barely. She was right. He'd made the same mistake twice. Acting on impulse, assuming his force of will could fix whatever was broken. "I understand," he said. "What happens now?" "Now you go back to Charlotte and race cars. I go to work and face whatever's left of the media storm. We talk on the phone like we did before. We see if this thing between us is strong enough to survive in the real world." Trey's phone buzzed on the coffee table. Chelsea, probably wondering if he'd been kidnapped or had suffered a mental breakdown. He ignored it. "I have a race in Phoenix this weekend." "I know. You'll win it." The confidence in her voice was matter of fact. Engineering certainty applied to racing. "How can you be sure?" "Phoenix is a one-groove track. Passing is nearly impossible once the field spreads out. It's all about qualifying position and pit strategy. You're good at both." Trey felt something ease in his chest. She still talked to him like he was a driver, not a celebrity. She still analyzed his chances based on technical merit rather than fame. "Will you watch?" Sam considered this. "On TV, in my apartment, with takeout Chinese and no cameras." "I'll take it." His phone buzzed again. This time Sam glanced at it. "You should probably get back. Chelsea's going to send the National Guard if you don't check in soon." She might anyway. Trey gathered his keys and wallet, pausing at the door. "Sam." "Yeah?" Thank you for not giving up. Thank you for apologizing instead of defending. The drive back to the airport was quiet. Trey spent the time running through the conversation, cataloging what he'd learned. Sam needed control. She needed space. She needed to feel like she was choosing this rather than being swept along by his momentum. He could give her those things. The flight back to Charlotte was smooth, the landscape below shifting from Carolina grain to familiar red clay. By the time he landed, Chelsea was waiting at the hangar with her arms crossed and her expression promising a lecture. Do I want to know where you've been for the past 36 hours? Trey rapped back against the headrest. Raleigh, obviously. Did you fix whatever you broke? Maybe. She's agreed to try again, but privately. No public appearances until she's ready. Good, Chelsea said, surprising him. The media attention was getting toxic. Legal was starting to field calls about harassment. It was that bad? Some of the Reddit threads were genuinely disturbing. People found her college thesis and were picking apart her methodology like she was applying for the Nobel Prize. It was vicious. Trey's hands clenched involuntarily. The protective rage was still there, burning under his ribs. Can we make it stop? Only one way. Give them nothing to talk about. No photos, no confirmation, no story. Eventually, they'll move on to the next scandal. How long? Weeks, maybe months. Depends on whether something bigger happens in the sports world. Months. Sam would have to live with the residual attention for months before it faded completely. The thought made him sick. She's strong, Chelsea added quietly, reading his expression. Stronger than you're giving her credit for. The women who can't handle the spotlight usually crumble immediately. She fought back. She shouldn't have to fight at all. No, she shouldn't. But that's the world we live in, and if she's worth it, you'll both figure out how to navigate it. The shop was busy when they arrived, the team prepping for Phoenix. Trey threw himself into the work, reviewing telemetry, discussing setup changes, focusing on the mechanical details that always calmed his mind. Racing was pure in a way that the media circus never could be. Lap times didn't lie, aerodynamics didn't have opinions. That evening, he called Sam from the house. She answered on the second ring. How was the rest of your day? He asked. Quiet. I went back to work. Melissa had 17 questions, but she's been running interference with the gossips. My boss postponed the meeting about distractions indefinitely. Good. Any photographers? One this morning, but he got bored when I didn't do anything interesting. Turns out, watching someone debug quarries isn't compelling television. Shocking. How's the car looking for Phoenix? Good. Setups almost dial in. We're running more front brake dump to help with tire dumps in the desert. For the next hour, they talked about racing, setup philosophy, track conditions, strategy options. It was the conversation they'd been having since the night they met, technical and passionate, and completely removed from the chaos of the past few days. When Sam finally yawned and said she needed to sleep, Trey felt more settled than he had since Texas.
Same time tomorrow, he asked. Same time tomorrow. The week passed in a rhythm of calls and preparation. Sam gradually sounded more like herself, less guarded, more willing to laugh. The media attention was already beginning to fade, exactly as Chelsea had predicted. Without new content to sustain the story, it was being displaced by other scandals. Friday morning, Trey was reviewing pit road logistics when his phone rang. Sam calling earlier than usual. Are you busy? He asked. Never too busy for you. What's up? I've been thinking about our arrangement, about keeping things private. Trey's stomach dropped. Having second thoughts? Actually, yes. but not the way you think." Sam's voice carried a note of excitement that he hadn't heard since before Texas. "I want to come to Phoenix." "Sam, hear me out. Not to the track, not to the race itself, but I want to be there, in the city. I want to watch you win from a sports bar somewhere, surrounded by normal people who don't know who I am." Trey felt his pulse quicken. "Are you sure?" "I'm sure that I want to support you, and I'm sure that hiding in my apartment isn't sustainable long term, so I'm going to try being in the same time zone. Baby steps. I could arrange a hotel, something nice but not connected to the team." "I already booked something," Sam said, and he could hear the smile in her voice. "A perfectly average place near the airport. I'm flying out Saturday morning on a perfectly average commercial flight." "I wish I could pick you up." "You can't, but maybe after the race, if you win, you could find your way to a particular sports bar. I'll text you the address." Trey leaned back in his chair, grinning. "And if I don't win?" "Then you'll find your way to the same sports bar and explain what went wrong with the car. Either way, I'll be there." "Trey?" "Yeah?" "This is perfect." "It's a start," she corrected. "We'll see how perfect it feels when you're actually there." But as Trey ended the call and returned to his pit road notes, he felt something he hadn't experienced in years. The anticipation wasn't just about winning anymore. It was about having someone to share it with who understood what the victory actually meant. Someone who would be cheering for him not because he was famous, but because he knew exactly how hard he'd worked for every 10th of a second.